What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Van Chats. I'm sitting here with Adam Klosowiak of Skillboard. What is the guitar company too? What's that called?
Yeah, the guitar company is Close Guitars, Klos.
Yeah, and so we're gonna kind of dive into how I met him and I mean his kind of business models are pretty wild and insane because I mean he turned Skillboard into what, in $1 million company in over a year, right?
Less than a year, yeah.
That's insane. And so you say it with such like humbleness and just like when it really just comes down to a straight up mic drop. But anyways, tell us a little bit about you, like your sporting background. I know you got a lot of climbing background, but yeah, let's get to know Adam.
Yeah. Yeah, so my sports background is rooted in gymnastics. I have three older brothers, and my parents are from Poland. And gymnastics was a pretty fundamental sport kind of in PE in Poland in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so my parents signed up the oldest brother for gymnastics, and then that kind of trickled down to me. But I did gymnastics from the age of 5 to 18 with a year gap in eighth grade. And then I played soccer growing up. But really, it was 24 hours of gymnastics per week from third grade to beginning of high school, and then it became a seasonal sport, and that I think gives me a lot of talk. We'll get into balance and flexibility and strength. That sport I think gives you such a good baseline for everything.
Yeah.
That my athletic kind of development from there all comes back to that. In college, I picked up hockey. I was on the club hockey team at Princeton. I picked up slacklining. I picked up rock climbing about a year ago, and that has accelerated really fast. So everything I think comes back to that cornerstone of the gymnastics fundamentals.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts because it's almost like gymnastics is almost kind of like being bilingual. And here's why I say that is because when you walk in with somebody who's bilingual, they're immediately can just talk to anyone. They can do anything. They can read anything, and they just make life so much easier. I feel like with gymnastics, you can pretty much do any sport in some regard. I mean, like it's
Yeah,
just like obviously you got to learn it, but in some regard, it's just like with the core strength and the mobility that you have, it's got to be pretty foundational, huh?
totally. Yeah. And if a sport has some kind of equipment intricacies, you just have to learn that, and then usually you're pretty good to go. Like hockey was tricky picking up because I didn't know how to skate,
Yeah.
which was a whole other hilarious story when I joined sophomore year. But once I learned how to skate, then the balance came pretty quickly. Focusing on two things at once, your feet doing one thing, your head on a swivel, holding a stick, dribbling a puck. It all came really quick. The coach said he never saw someone learn hockey as fast as I did. And yeah, I totally agree with that bilingual aspect. And I think it's a great, whether it's gymnastics or something similar. A lot of people, they'll learn their sport growing up, but they don't focus on flexibility at all. For example, a lot of people can't touch their toes,
Yeah.
and that I think creates a lot of risk of injury later. So I think whatever sport you do growing up, it's good to train everything, include flexibility, all that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. And so I got to ask now. So you own two companies, and what came first, guitars or Skillboard?
So guitars came way before Skillboard. My brother Ian and I started both companies together, and I was graduating Princeton in electrical engineering. Ian was graduating BYU with mechanical engineering. He's 5 years older, but kind of took a longer path. So we were graduating at the same time, and he had designed a guitar for one of his mechanical engineering classes, and I had just kind of gotten into entrepreneurship through electrical engineering. My friends and I designed this power strip that you could connect to via Bluetooth. So anything plugged into it, a lamp, a fan, whatever, you could turn on and off from your phone. And that kind of got me into product, market sizing, competitor assessment, brand. And we kind of did that at the same time. And he needed someone to pitch the guitar in a business competition. So I was visiting him in Utah for a ski trip, and I was like, yeah, I can throw that together. We won $1,000. We built a second guitar. I started walking around campus with this carbon fiber travel guitar in my backpack everywhere for the whole
Wow.
second semester. Everyone's like, dude, why do you have a guitar neck sticking out of your backpack?
You were
And
that
I,
guy in college.
yeah,
You
I
were
was that
that guy
guy.
in college.
They're like, why does that dude have a guitar all the time?
Yeah.
But I would pitch the guitar every time someone asked, and I just really honed that pitch really well. Oh well, why carbon fiber? Oh, durability, temperature, humidity change, improvement, travel, adventure. Makes sense, etc. Um, and that was a great. Looking back, that was actually a really great way to nail down the elevator pitch, become super comfortable talking about it to anyone, whether it was a professor, another student, investor, you name it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so Close Guitars was first, and then Skillboard came 4 years later. Skillboard is just a year and a half old. December 2019 is when we launched, so pretty new. But I would say the learning that came from Close Guitars is sort of why Skillboard has been on the fast track. Because a lot of those early mistakes that we did make with Close Guitars, we just knew not to make with Skillboard. And it was kind of like I knew exactly what to do to launch this brand. It was more of a to-do list rather than trying to figure out what is the to-do list.
Yeah. No, and so how do you drastically go from creating guitars to creating Skillboard? And for you guys that don't know what Skillboard is, Adam's going to kind of tell us a little bit about it, but it's the balance board that I've been using, that you can see that we've been using on Instagram, and it's what makes it a bit different than most is the fact that you're using a ball instead of what would be like a foam roller, so you get this whole 360 optimized balance rotation. But yeah, so how do you go from guitars to making Skillboard?
Yeah, so it's not even as much. Well, so we run both companies now at the same time, um, and really, when you break down, so I like to break every business idea down into the different components, and with guitars, you have the guitar, you have to make the guitar. Um, And so with that, you have to find suppliers to make the parts. I mean, there's the engineering, the design. Once you nail that, you have to find the suppliers to make it. Once you have that, manufacturing is a huge ball to juggle. Once you successfully do that, you have logistics. You get it to our factory in Utah. So we get most of the parts imported, and then we assemble all the guitars and do the final like 80% of building there. Um, and then you have the completed guitar. And then when you break down the business, okay, you have a finished product. Now it's marketing, branding, advertising, customer service, all that. And so when you break it down like that, it's very easy to plug in a completely different product. Skillboard, yeah, it's not carbon fiber, but wood. Just find a different supplier. So we found a supplier who makes skateboards. We gave them our design. We worked with their engineers. We figured out, okay, this is the kind of mold we need for the Skillboard. We set that up. We did an early batch run. We got that. We had a few mistakes with our first batch run. Just the paint job was wrong. The size was wrong. That always happens with supply chain in the beginning.
Yeah.
We even budgeted for that this time, so it was like, oh great, huge mistake, classic
Yeah.
beginner move. But yeah, so it is not that different. Once you have the supplier and you have manufacturing set up, we receive everything, and then it's the same thing. It's marketing, branding, customer service. So I'm kind of developing this framework for launching cool brands that I'm passionate about as both a musician and an athlete. And so yeah, although they're very different products, I think the strategy is pretty similar.
Sweet. And so with Skillboard, what's the whole on like advantage for the athlete? Like I remember when I was chatting with you, I didn't even get really attached to Skillboard as much for the training side as much as I did just for the cross training. Like I'm always looking for something fun. I'm always looking for something new. But yeah, like what's the sell point to an athlete that knows nothing about Skillboard?
Yeah. So Skillboard, most athletes that I know, and ranging from your amateur recreational athlete to your professional athlete, most people will do some form of cross training. If you're snowboarding in the winter, you obviously can't snowboard in the summer. You're doing something else to stay fit, whether you're running or swimming or whatever. Um, Pro athletes more so try to dial in their balance, whether they're doing slack lines in the gym or they're on an indo board with a roller. So, one thing is cross training. The other thing is, balance as a whole. I think everyone has had the experience where they fall, whatever sport they're doing, they lose balance, they fall. And sometimes that has no repercussions. Sometimes that's a really bad injury. And so Skillboard is very difficult. You have a flat board. There's no sidewall. There's no curvature that keeps the ball in place. The ball is a round ball that you can pump up to a very high PSI. And there's also no attachment or anything. It's just a flat surface on a round ball. And when you're at a high PSI, it's very difficult. We've seen multiple, like 3-time Olympians get on the first try and they fall off right away. And it's infuriating and also addicting because you're like, what the hell? Like this guy in front of me can balance no problem on this, and I'm a 3-time Olympian and I can't get it right away. So it's very difficult, and it trains. It just trains your balance, and it tests your balance in a way that I think no other balance board on the market does right now. What sport has balance in one dimension where you're swinging left to right? Mm-hmm. Almost no sport has that. And you want a balance tool that's going to test your balance so that, that oh shit moment where you almost catch an edge snowboarding or you're mountain biking, you turn a bank a little too fast and you have to dial it back and shift your weight. That is the moment that you're training for. You want to heighten your awareness to your body in whatever spatial orientation you're in. And that's kind of what it does. And then there are so many different use cases for it too. You can just stand on it and balance. The longer you balance on it, then you start getting into more of the core. You're fatiguing your muscles. You can do tricks on it. At that point, you're testing more, just like learning tricks with any new sport, whether you're learning a new trick in gymnastics or on a skateboard or on a snowboard. You're trying to achieve another level of difficulty on the piece of equipment. So you can kind of take it in any direction, but overall, it's a difficult tool that will test your balance. And I would argue balance is a part of not just everyday life, but every single sport.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I definitely think it has value, especially in the mountain biking realm. I mean, in all of the cycling realms, but just like, I mean, breaking it down, I'm just thinking off the top, like mountain biking is got to be massive. Gravel, I would think, would be massive, but even track cycling, road cycling, it's got to be huge. I mean, I know I got super addicted to it right when it got in. When it first came in, I did put a hole in the wall. I did fly off because you send this card with the amount of PSI that you should put in it. Like I think it's like beginner, intermediate, and then expert. And I just was like, oh, I'm expert. And that I will be honest right now, I'm not expert. And so I'm slowly and surely learning and trying new things. But yeah, I think that's what I liked about it was that, I felt like on an endo board, it was one of those things that you just I just got it. Like
Yeah.
I was able to do it pretty quick. I mean, I was able to even like pop shove it on the thing after a while, and it's like you just kind of get used to it. Whereas like I feel like there's a solid warm up period with Skillboard, at least for me, about every day,
Yeah.
just if I'm gonna do it. And so that's what I like about it, because it's almost like always channeling something new, always trying something new. And so that all being said, what else do you see coming in form of Skillboard? Like, we had this conversation where, Skillboard became $1 million company in less than a year. So
Yeah.
people actually do not only believe in it, but are using it.
Yeah.
What else do you see coming down the pipeline for Skillboard?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's, there are hopes and dreams. I think at the, we would love for Skillboard to become kind of the balance board. When people talk about balance, or when people talk about strength training, flexibility, balance, Skillboard is the first term that you say when you think of a brand related to balance. I think that's the goal. That is going to be many years of work, and a lot of effort to do that. But it'd be awesome to, people say like a Skillboard in every home, or whatever product, fill in the blank, in every home. I think everyone stands to improve if they do some kind of balance training every day. We once had a customer who responded. He was a physical therapist, and he emailed us after receiving his board, and he was like, a lot of my patients are older, and a lot of them slip on ice, they break their hip or have some kind of accident like that. It's like, if everyone in the country grew up on a Skillboard, then we would have so many fewer injuries in elderly people, because everyone's balance would be better, and that's a real thing. So, the short answer, just more boards everywhere, and
Yeah.
have people understand why balance is important more.
So like in the schools of kids almost.
Yeah. I mean, think about how many people think about getting stronger, bigger biceps, going to the gym, but completely, kind of like people forget leg day.
Yeah.
What is going to be, strong legs are extremely important. And, if you have strong legs, especially, you live in Colorado, I'm in Utah, um, being able to hike long and far gets you to the coolest places here. And same with balance. Having good balance I would argue, allows you to truly enjoy a lot of the sports that there are out there. Um, if you're going out snowboarding and you're just doing greens all day, you're not unlocking the full potential and full enjoyment of that sport. So I would love for the narrative, when people think about strength training, to think more about balance, and start actively treating it like a muscle, because it's like a muscle that you can improve. It's a sensory function, that, yeah, if you don't train or improve, you can't really expect it to improve that much. So I think, more sales and different channels, getting more of them out there, but also having people understand the importance of balance. And I think riding the board teaches you that, and it shows you that. And that's, I think, the easiest way. I prefer showing, not telling. I would love for a balance skeptic to get on the board and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I can't ride this because I just don't have the ability. I would love for someone like that to then train, and then they do get the ability, and see kind of the body control improvement that they see from that.
Yeah, no, that'd be interesting. It would be really interesting to kind of see it in like almost like a chiropractic format, like of, somebody that lacks the balance, lacks the, I guess the athletic background. I mean, you give it to a 3-time Olympian. Yeah. While he might fall off or she might fall off, like they're going to pick it up eventually. Like they're going to
Right.
figure it out, whether they have to lower the air pressure a bit. And,
Yeah.
I mean, one thing for me is that I found, the easiest thing with getting the thing started is like without having to grab on anything, like, right. Like, so a lot of people, when you get started on this things, you're like grabbing on walls or you're like trying to
Yep.
prep yourself to get going first. But just going side to side and getting a feel for the ball and then letting it level itself out. But yeah, actually trying to find somebody that doesn't have that athletic ability to just kind of, hey, give it a shot. Because I think if you lower the pressure low enough, you can get it up there eventually, and you can
Yeah.
get it stable. You can't really rock back and forth or do too much with it, but
Right.
you can get it at least stable as long as it's centered. But anyways, no, that's super cool. And guys, if you have any interest in Skillboard, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Don't hesitate to reach out to Adam. Don't hesitate to reach out to Skillboard directly. They got a super responsive team on social media that's responding super, super quick. And they also on their social media, they got all the cool kind of crazy tricks that you can kind of do on a Skillboard. I'm not up there yet because I haven't done any cool, crazy tricks. And but yeah, one more question though before I let you go, Adam. We ask everybody this on the podcast. If you could have a cup of coffee with one individual, dead or alive, who would that individual be? And then on top of that, how would you take your coffee and then why?
Ooh,
This is a tough one.
that's a difficult question. Yeah. Okay. Dead or alive? Anyone?
Dead or alive, anyone.
Cup of coffee. I think I would go at this moment with Phil Knight.
Okay.
It's somewhat of a random choice, but so my favorite genre is biographies. I love reading biographies, and I read Phil Knight's book Shoe Dog 2 years ago while I was hiking. It was an audiobook. I was hiking South Sister in Oregon.
Yeah.
And which is a super steep mountain. I think it's the third tallest in Oregon, but it has this section that's insanely steep. And yeah, I mean, his story of creating Nike, and he was figuring out everything I described about supply chain, suppliers, sourcing, shipping, manufacturing in an age where you didn't have any of these online tools that we have now. He was flying to Japan and China and having these meetings when no one else was doing that. So I would love to say his story is incredibly motivating. His perseverance through the brand, that he had so many hard moments where he figured it out, got financing, was way overextended with everything, and still made it work. And Nike's worth like 150 billion or something right now.
Which is nuts to think about Nike going through any hard moments,
Yeah, totally. So I would love to talk to him and just hear how he looks back on his life in that process. And how would I take my coffee? Well, so I make most of the coffee that I drink.
Would you make Phil Knight a coffee?
Oh yeah, I would love to make Phil Knight a coffee.
Just like a little bit of stress there.
I think I would have to choose. I'd probably go with the reverse AeroPress method.
Yeah, just keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Dash of cream, maybe steam the milk.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, man. No, I think that's great. And yeah, like I said, man, I think like, I have a little bit of like a business background and nowhere near you, but like that's where I get excited to chat with a guy like you who's kind of like in the sporting world, but has made the entrepreneurship just like work, and I know it's been hard, and I know it looks, a lot easier on the outside looking in, but man, it's really cool to see what you're doing. And, I love the product. I love the Skillboard. One of these days I'll have to play, the guitar and try that out and see what that's like. But yeah, man, I just think it's super cool what you're doing. And then on top of that, you're just doing what you love, man. I mean, I think you spent a whole winter, skiing and exploring and adventuring, and would you have surgery on your knee? And then you were like rock climbing a week later or something, right? What was that?
Yeah, I I have this philosophy that you should always be working on something, and
Yeah.
it's cliche, but I really believe in the sound body, sound mind phrase.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I had knee surgery January 6th of this year, and I actually went rock climbing 2 days later, just with one leg,
Jeez.
because
Wow,
my
man.
arms were fine and my other leg was fine, and we made it work. But yeah, I think it's I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, and I will say it's so much easier working hard when you love the products that you're working on, or you love the industry. For me, being an amateur athlete, I mean, when I compare myself to people like you, I'm like here.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, Skillboard is just super fun because I get to talk to athletes and I get to pitch that balance is important. And, I love slacklining and I love balance and everything. So it almost doesn't feel like a job. And then close guitars for making instruments. And I take a break from working almost every day and I pick up my close guitar and I practice playing. And I'm like, oh, wow, we make this and this is work.
Yeah,
you know,
that's your job.
so there are definitely hard moments, but it's easier when you're making something that you're passionate about. And that could be anything for anyone. Slashing healthcare costs could be that for someone who's really passionate about making healthcare affordable, or whatever it is. So I feel like I found that pretty early, and I'm really lucky for that. And doing it here in Utah is a treat, just because the mountains are in the back door and
Yeah.
super accessible.
No, yeah, you're not in a bad place for sure. But anyways, yeah, guys, if you want, be sure all the social media links will be down there below. Adam's, mine, Skillboard. You can check out all those social medias down below. And yeah, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, John.